Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to start a brand new series called Laex Builds, a farming sim. Let's go straight on into it. We've built a lot of really cool material recently, and we are going to build an area where you can have incredible, wondrous farming adventures. The first thing we're going to do is build some kind of rolling hills off in the distance. We don't really want these to be super close because we're not going to be able to get out here. These are just supposed to be kind of like viewed. Last one. There we go. So let's go take a look. Perfect. See, that is exactly what I was going for without like rolling hills. And so now what we want to do is connect with a giant platform. There we go. Doesn't need to be super accurate. As you can see, it now looks like it kind of fades off into the background, which is what we're going for. And what we want to do is paint it. We'll go with a classic green. I've got this beautiful kind of endless sprawling hills, which actually I didn't even have to do much to make it look good. And we're not worried about these little crevices. Like normally if we were going to make people be able to come out here, we definitely have to worry about filling those in. But in this case, I'm just kind of going for a little bit of, and then I think I want to build like a snowy capped region out here. So I want to go grab maybe, see, this sort of ice peak, represent like a mountain. And it's not bad. Kind of close that in a little bit. And we want to go with more of a blue-green where it's kind of gotten cold. Got that. Let's take a look at these hills. Kind of nice. Yeah, they feel like, it feels a little bit repetitive over there. So let's go through this area since I never touched it. So after this, we want to maybe take this and maybe make a big hill right here. There we go. And maybe take this one and just pop it up a little. There we go. And maybe take this down, pull this out, rotate. And go down a little bit further, yeah. Or up higher and then down, right like that. Yeah, that's good. Got some nice variation. It feels very, off in the distance. And then this mountain feels like it needs something more, which I'm thinking is super simple. We just duplicate this up to here, and we duplicate this one up to, sure that'll work, here. And then we'll grab the mountain and duplicate the peaks. This kind of reminds me of, we'll make these slightly smaller. What is the name of that movie? The Good Dinosaur, and they're like the Clawtooth Mountain, right? The 3 peaks. Yeah, that's actually really nice. It looks a lot better. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and build in some barriers so that way people cannot get past a certain point. And so I'm gonna assume that this is still right dead in the center, which is fine, so that's good. Question is, how does the ground look? So I want to start by building kind of a ball about the size of my hand. Properties, interactive, physics, fall, like, I don't know, rubber ball. Cool. And make it grabbable. No, 2 hand grab, sure. Cool. So come in as a player. Got this ball. Nice. And how's that collision there? Looks like it's doing all right. Seems to be rolling, which is strange, isn't it? Have a slight hill? Is there a slight hill? Oh, no, there's not. Okay, that was just some physics work in there. Cool. Yeah, that looks good. Surprising this collision is not bad right here. We might find in other places it's not as good as this, so we'll keep our eyes on it. But usually when you make objects this big, they lose their collision. But it's probably because we built it super thin and flat rather than building it really big like a square, like a giant cube, I mean. So, man, that is just way too much fun. I tell you, there's just simple things like this. Like I remember the first time I went to build, I figured out how to build a rubber ball, and that was just killer fun. So we'll leave that there for now, just as a little toy. So let's go ahead and start defining how big we want this area to be. Okay. So we're going to kind of go in a few chunks here. And I think for this purpose, we can actually just duplicate. There we go. Nice. So kind of a large area here. If we come in, you can see this. It's pretty big, really. I mean, a lot bigger than you might expect it to be. I'm really curious how when we get to the edges, this is going to affect. But for now, let's just go ahead and make this a solid border that's invisible. And then let's go test it out and see how solid it is. So we're going to go ahead and group. And then we're going to go into the group properties. We're going to go ahead and make it collisionable, yes, but not visible. And one other thing I'd like to do is lock it down. Okay, so now it can't be changed. And I want to do the same with our hills and with our floor. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So we're going to zoom out and then grab all of these objects. Make sure to grab those peaks too. There we go. Grab the floor and group. And now we're going to grab the lock and it's locked. Okay, so now when we're working in here, we can't accidentally grab the floor or something. Let's go ahead and test out this ball again. Make sure the collisions are good. Nice. So is there going to be something that defines why you can't get past that wall? Yes, there will be. At some point we'll build in like a little fence or something else, but for now this is fine. I kind of want to just go this way and see how far we can go and how clear that becomes, because that's kind of an important thing to note for our visual style. We haven't even gone in to adjust our, oh, that is as far as we can go. Right here. Yep, can't go any closer. So I like that it's still not super visible. It's like almost barely clear that it's snow-peaked mountains. I almost think that there needs to be something else done right here, but we'll come to that, like more fine-tuning later. And go to our gizmos, gonna grab environment. And under environment, I'm gonna go ahead and set it to be, I always like sunrise. I feel like that's kind of a nice farmy feeling. Fog density of 0.01 seems good. Show grid off. The grid is that piece that was under here. It's gone now. So once you've built your land, you don't really need the grid. Sometimes I use the grid for building on, but in this case I won't be. And we're gonna do extended. So if you're on one side of the world, you can still talk to the people who are in the world. Show grid off. Okay, looks good. Now let's go ahead and get some kind of music. So you ever go to a world and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this music. Why is it always the same? Well, in this world, we're gonna do something a little different. We're not gonna play it on start. We're gonna choose 4 different songs and we're gonna play them all randomly at random times with the time variance being unknown. It's gonna be a lot like listening to Minecraft music. So you kind of want some soft, kind of melodic music like this. Like, not like that. So let's go ahead and stop this one. So what we'll do is we'll create like a radio that'll continuously play music. And I think that would be really cool. So then what I can do is have kind of like a more upbeat sound somewhere else. Like, I really like that one. Sounds really good, right? So we've got 4 like kind of upbeat sounds. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of like relaxed, mellow sounds. So I'm thinking let's go ahead and put the 4 music pieces in the store, and then we'll put the 6 kind of like peaceful sounds out in the barn house. So let's go ahead and start writing some code for this. So we're gonna go through and grab a script, and we're only gonna create 1 script for all of this. And the way this is gonna work is when world is started, we're gonna have a variable, which is gonna be a number, and it's gonna be the number of tracks. Okay, so we're going to start this by defaulting it to 4, since we know there can be 4. In addition to that, we're going to create 4 objects, which will be called T1, and T6. There we go. So we got 6 different music tracks. The number of tracks will be set to 4. And then when we come over here, when world is started, what we want to happen is we want to calculate a random number. So we're going to create another variable which will be called, this will be live track. So this is going to decide which track is live. And so at the very beginning of the world, we need to figure out which song I'm going to play first. So we're going to go set live track to be the math of, and actually what we should do is not use when world is started. What we should do is we should use when event is received, call it my event, and then when the world is started, what we'll do is we will send event, not with delay, but send the event my event to object. And so we'll go ahead and then move this down here. And so we'll set live track to be the value of random number. And this random number will be between a minimum of 0 and a maximum of the number of tracks. So here's what you need to know about using random integer. Is the number of tracks is subtract 1, but starting at 0 means we're counting 0. So you have 0, 1, 2, and 3, which equals 4. So if we go to 6, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's 6 total because we're counting 0 as 1. Kind of confusing, I know, but it does work. So this is how it's going to work, but we don't use the number 4 at all, other than just to say that's the total number, because we're only going to get the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3. So now that we have a number between 0, 1, 2, and 3, we actually should go to our maximum on this, just so that we're always prepared for that. So let's go ahead and figure out which song to play. So the way we're going to do that is by running 6 if statements. Removing the indent, there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we're going to use checks by using the equal sign. So if this seems repetitive, it's because it is. Fortunately, this will be sped up for you. But when we get to doing players, at this point, I'm hoping to have it be multiplayer up to 8. I'm afraid we might have too many objects, so we're probably going to have to cut that down. But if we do end up having full 8 players, this is a lot of repetitive code because you have to have if statements for every single player. And I might try to figure out a way to reduce the amount of if statements, but in this case, this was necessary. Okay, so live track equals 0, 1, 2, 3, or 5. Then we're going to play sounds. We're going to play sound. And now that we have play sound set, we can now just drag these over. So we can play sound on track 1, then track 2, and so on and so forth. We have 6 different tracks here, and we can play all of them. But that only plays it once because we haven't looped it yet. So what we want to do is loop these tracks. So we want to send these events with a delay. So send event with delay. And thinking we might want to do is actually try to reduce the amount of code we're writing. And so we're going to set this to be outside because this code's going to run no matter what. So since we know this code's going to run no matter what, we're going to set it on the outside. And what we're going to be running is not my event. What we're going to run is called my event 2 in this case. Okay, so we got my event 2, and we want to delay this by 5 seconds. Okay. So the goal here is we're going to send my event 2, and we're going to set the length for each of these to run. So this number is going to be set in the next one. So when event is received, we then want to send event with delay, and the delay will be the number called length of track. All right, that's okay. And we'll send that here. So this is what's going to repeat my event, which will then repeat my event 2. And length of track, so that sends it to self. That's perfect. Does not appear there's a way to get the length of the song. Yeah. And since there's not a way to get the length of the song, I think what we should do is go ahead and just assume that we don't want this to play all the time, We want this to play like maybe once every 5 minutes we'll play a different track. So let's go ahead and set the length of track. But remember, we can always adjust this later because now it's a variable. So we can always come into the radio and say, you know, the length of the track is going to be different. And so let's go ahead and set it to be 5 minutes, which is 300 seconds. And that is in there, so that works. Now what we might want to do is when we send my event, we might want to stop all of the sounds. So the reason we would do that is so that if the sound, maybe we set it to be 2 minutes, but one of the songs is 3 minutes, well then they're not playing at the same time, which would be a little bit problematic. Stop sound. Sometimes I've found that the random integer to the set, these if statements run faster. So what we're going to do, since this is no longer doing what I wanted it to do, let's go ahead and run this event after 2 seconds and take my event, so this loop of my event, and play that back here and send event my event 2. And my event 2 is just going to run all of these if statements because that'll give it time to have calculated the random number, so that way it's not playing the same song over twice and then before realizing it needs to play a different song. So there we go. So now we've separated that. So my event's going to go ahead and stop all of the sounds. So let's go ahead and drag those in. Perfect. Okay, so this is great. This code all works. We now have what will work as a boombox. What I want to keep in mind is that these audio pieces, they're not designed to be moved. So what we should do is design a radio and put these audio pieces inside of the radio, so that way if we move the radio around, it'll move with them. So let's go ahead and design this. Dark black, nice. And then what I want to do is give this an option to be turned off. You know, every so often, there's that one guy who doesn't like music. Lame-o, am I right? And so what we'll do is we'll put a trigger around this. And so we'll have all the music running off of this trigger. And then inside of our music script, we'll make it so that when this gets hit, it'll knock the antennas over and the music will stop. When triggered is entered by player. There we go. So when trigger enters with player, we're going to want to have a new variable. This is going to be called object, and it's going to be an antenna. So this will represent like one of those old radios. And so when the trigger is entered with player, we're going to have a boolean to check the status of the antenna. So boolean, so we'll call this ant up. And ant up is going to start at true because it's going to start by being working. And so when we check, we're going to run 2 if statements. So if and if and if ant up equals true and if ant up equals false. So we'll go ahead and put some true and false in there. So if true and then if false. And then what we want to do is immediately set it to be the opposite. But now that I say immediately, I realize, well, I guess I don't mean immediately. We actually need this to happen after a second or 2. So let's go ahead and send event with delay and send event with delay. And this event is going to be called antenna. A little quick trick here is if you type in when event is received first, then this antenna will actually be in that list. It's like do as I say, not as I do sort of thing. I gotta get into the habit of that. So what we're gonna do is set the variable here. So instead, we're gonna create another one called ant down. So we'll have antenna and then we'll have ant down when event is received. Because we need there to be a delay, but you can't attach properties. I was gonna send a boolean through with it, but since this is a delayed one, we can't send the boolean through to make it simpler. So we got antenna and we got ant down. So it comes through true, then the antenna gets knocked down, but we want this to take a few seconds. So we'll have it take 5 seconds. That way and this is the changing of this. So what we want to do is change the boolean, but if we have it happen as soon as your hand enters this trigger, it'll happen too soon. And if it happens too soon, then you're not going to be able to, it'll just keep looping back and forth. It's just, don't do that. So having this delay cleans that up so you don't have that really bad user experience. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set ant up, and then let's do another one, set ant up, and we're going to set this to be a boolean of false and set this to be boolean of true. And so basically it's going to look like someone fixed it and then someone broke it and then someone fixed it and someone broke it and so on and so forth. So kind of neat. Okay, so when event trigger enters with players received, if ant up is true, send event ant down to self after 5 seconds. But what we also want to do is take new variable, and this is going to be a rotation, and this is going to be called antenna rotation. Okay, and so when the world is started, we want to set the ant rotation to be object, rotation of object. So rotation of object antenna. There we go. Now, what we need to do with our antenna is actually duplicate it. So what we want to do is grab these pieces and then unselect what we don't need. So trigger, and there we go. So it's just those two pieces. And then before we group them, well, we'll go ahead and group them. And then let's go into properties. Now go into the grouping, go down here into the bottom piece, get the properties of that, and go ahead and make this one non-collidable and non-visible. Perfect. Now we can go back out and we can make this animated. And the benefit here is now you can see that the center point, this object, is right there at the bottom, which means it's going to rotate around this axis when we rotate it. And since we want it to rotate on the x-axis, let's go ahead and see if we can't get this to rotate down. Is when the antenna is fixed, so right here it's going to, when ant up is false, so it's already down, we want to fix it by rotating 2. So go in here and add rotate 2 on antenna and rotate it to its original rotation. And then we want to, in this one, rotate by, and we want to rotate on the x-axis by, we're going to say 50 degrees and see if that does a good job. Make sure that applies to the antenna. Perfect. So that should rotate it back to its original location when it happens, and that will all switch it around back and forth. But now we want it to actually stop the music. So what you might remember up here is we went ahead and set this up to stop sound and send an event. So we have 2 seconds before this event plays the next song. We can cancel event with delay before it hits. So that means we can stop all the music. We have to stop my event as well, and we need to stop my event too. So what we need to do is send my event, but then cancel sending my event and my event too. So how are we going to do that? Well, whenever the trigger enters with this one, see, all we need to do, let's start with the bottom one because that one's easiest. So first, on this one, when it's fixed, we just need to send my event, and it restarts everything. Everything starts back up at the beginning. So that's easy. Now, the next one, we need to do the exact same thing. So send event my event to self, and then we need to send an event with a delay to self, and we have antenna down running, but we can't use that one. So we need to do a different one. This will be called my event 3. I'm really creative with names today, aren't I? Thank you, I appreciate that. So we're gonna send my event 3 to self after 1 second. Now this is perfect because now when we come up here and when my event 3 is received, so go ahead, custom my event 3. Okay, so when my event 3 is received, we'll cancel sending with delay both events. So cancel sending with delay and cancel sending with delay, and that's on my event. and my event 2. So if we come back up here, we're going to see my event 2 won't play the music and my event won't repeat. So we'll cancel the 5-minute countdown to repeat itself. And that should do it. Pretty incredible code. I mean, it's not super difficult. It's just kind of a lot of copying and pasting and, putting stuff in, just kind of data entry, but I really like it. I think this is going to be really neat. And it's going to give us kind of a nice variety of music too, with the ability to stop and start the music. So with that said, let's go ahead and try it out. Okay, so to try it out, we need to do a couple things first. So number one, we need to attach music. Now that we've attached music, some of these things are going to stay the same. For instance, this object in here, the antenna, is going to be tagged in here because we're going to need 2 of these, right? So we need to duplicate the object. But if we start by linking it all up, then we won't have to duplicate it again, which is really nice. So everything in here is good. We'll go ahead and trigger on players. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and group this into a single object. There we go. So we're going to go click group. And now we're going to duplicate this. Perfect. And now that we've duplicated it, we can focus on one of these at a time. Let's go into the properties of this one. We're going to go inside, go into the trigger, and all of our code is running off of this trigger. So let's go grab our music. All right, we need to back out of the object so we can work with other things. Okay, so now that we're out of the object, open this one up, open this one up, and we're just going to go start from left to right. So this will be track 1. Nice, it automatically worked. That's cool. I'm nervous though. There's only a 1 in 6 chance of that working. Oh, okay, maybe. 50% chance of a song playing. Anything gonna play? Oh. We're getting too far away from them. So remember, we're really big right now, so 25 blocks to us is nothing. But what we need to do is move all this music inside of the object. Now, unfortunately, I didn't group it into it, but that's okay because we can just continue nesting and that's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and start by doing that. Then let's grab all these songs and just kind of put them right here on top of this. And we can close out of this. All right, last one. Wonderful. All right, so we're in here as a player. Oh my gosh, it perfectly smacked. Did you see that? That was so good. I can't believe how well that worked, and it stopped the music instantly. Like, theoretically, it's gonna work. I mean, you have to wait 5 minutes to make sure, but I'm pretty confident it will, so let's go smack it back. Oh, I love it. It feels like that might be a little bit off-centered, so I kind of want to fix that real quick. But you guys, this is great. Cool little boombox. Love it. Okay, so let's go in here and adjust this just a hair. Properties. Go into the object. And so we need to go another layer deeper. So we're going to go properties. Go into the object. And I think I've decided I want to make this thing just a little bit cleaner, like downward level. Like that. Yeah, I really like that. And now, oops, undo. Oh, right, we do want to grab that. Okay, so we've got that. And what we want to do is come down here on, drag it down, and then turn this off, and then slide it slightly to the center. Maybe there can be, is that centered? That looks centered. Yeah? All right. Aha! Nice. And oh, that went. Oh, because I hit it before the timer had reset. Interesting. So that's kind of interesting that it kind of like, you can smack it a couple times, like really mess it up. How much do you really not want to hear music? I'm not even opposed to that. Like, I think I need to fix it, but I also am like, yeah, I'm gonna fix it, but I still kind of like it. Okay, so I just thinned it out. The front's a little bit thinner. This is a little bit thinner, but the whole thing, like I literally just shrunk the entire thing, but I like that a little bit better. I think it looks cleaner. So now to fix the antenna going too far, what we do is just go back up into our code, and under music, we can come down in here, and instead of setting it to move by, rotate by, what we're gonna do is rotate to. Rotate to, and let's actually leave that there for just a second. Undo. Grab the antenna, so we'll save that code. And now what we want to use is a plus sign. And so we're going to rotate its original rotation. So we're going to just take its original rotation, and then we're going to add 50. So we come over here, grab our rotation input, and then just type in 50, 5, 0. Perfect. Now it will only rotate to the location. It cannot rotate past that location. So that works perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and test it out by first resetting the world. I love this ball, by the way. That is too much fun still. Just boom. And if we hit it again, you can see it stays in the same spot, and we can knock it up in a few seconds. There we go. And now music's back on. Nice. I could affect it so you could throw the ball at it to do that, but you know what? This is good. This is so good. The only thing I want is like something for it to sit on, because it's so low. Like hitting this down low is actually really hard. Like you could jump on it. You could like, jump fixed it. Anyway, but then you can see once you get away from it, like not even by that far, like you can barely hear it back here. And then if you're coming into the store, you're like, oh yeah, it's nice and loud. And this really nice three-dimensional audio rather than being that kind of, you know, omnipresent audio where it's just like, where is this audio coming from that's around this whole world? Plus you don't even have to listen to it. You can also turn it off, which I think is super key to a great gameplay experience. Duplicate this object. And now that we've duplicated this object, we can go into properties, ungroup the object. Now that we've ungrouped it, we can delete these 6 audio tracks, and then make sure we unselect that. Grab those, delete. Now we've already unselected it, so now we can go into the properties of this one and go inside. And now we're gonna open up our trigger. Perfect. Okay, so this is only gonna have 4 audio tracks. There we go, and 4, enter. Perfect. So we got our 4 audio tracks set. And now let's go ahead and grab the doohickey from these, which we need to first leave this. Close that out. Properties, 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 properties. Doohickey. Booyah, we got our 4 set up. And now what we need to do is the same thing we did before, which is move these audio pieces. It's interesting how just moving my head gets me within 25 blocks when you're so big. So we're gonna zoom in. We got another music set up, and this one's gonna work well too. And since there's not a lot in this world, let's go ahead and just set it right over here. Rotate it around. All right, so as a player, we have this one here, and if we walk this way, there's kind of a period where there's no audio, and then it kind of starts coming in. And we'll test this one out as well. Smacks. Whoa, interesting, right? Look at how that kind of disoriented differently. That is quite interesting. I wasn't expecting that. I'm not opposed to it. It's kind of like nice that they're different. Like happy accident, right? Like there's definitely, I just have the axis wrong. The axis is wrong, but that's a happy accident if I've ever seen one. Cool. All right, so I think that's where we're gonna leave it off for today. we've got a couple cool radios, we've got this beautiful scenery, and next time we come in, we are going to start working on building our farmland and we'll bring in some of our other scripts that we've already worked on in the past. But I'm really excited to continue building this simulator, this farming simulator. It's quite a lot of fun, so thanks for joining, and have a great day. Bye!